Man, I've been wanting to make this video about Wildermyth for a long time. I've been wanting to talk about this game.
Yeah, I mean, I think overall it's been one of my favourite games of the past couple of years.
Like, I remember when we first discovered this game, we went, us and the boys. For
we
a
got
couple of days, we were playing on it like 5 hours.
Yeah, we got the squad together.
Oh, for sure, man. There's some negative reviews that I found quite interesting, actually.
Interesting? What do
Because
you mean?
overall, the idea is the game is really well received.
Yeah.
But I think the reviews are saying some interesting things we need to dive into.
Okay, so
Let's dive into it then.
let's dive in.
Alright, the general consensus. There's all the negative reviews, basically, most of them say the exact same thing. And there's two reviews in particular which are like the most well received negative reviews.
Right, I haven't read any of these two reviews, so I'm going to rely on you to take me through them.
The first review, they were saying how the details don't matter in the game because the game is random.
The
That's
details
the
don't
point they
matter. What do you mean by that? Expand a little bit.
Okay, so they themselves provided an example. They said at one point, one of the characters' head became a wolf. Right, he had a wolf head.
Yeah, I've had a few characters do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that was fun. But I don't know if you noticed, and it was true for us too, as well as for him. That wolf head actually never came up whatsoever in the story. It didn't affect the gameplay any more than just the combat. You feel me? Only the combat was affected, and even then, it was just like you got one more move to do in combat. That's it.
That's actually quite a fair point.
Yeah, I mean, usually we completely disagree with every point. We break them down, but like that's a good point.
While obviously certain events seem to have no impact, a lot of events add what's called hooks to the game, and hooks are how like the story decides which things to bring up for you, and which position to put your characters in. So I'm thinking maybe the wolf head adds a hook that we're not aware of. I'll look it up so we're not misinformed.
Yeah, maybe for all intents and purposes, maybe we just don't know.
I've looked up and there is no hook related to the wolf transformation.
Yeah, that's bad right there.
Yeah, so yeah, he is right. It's just a completely it's not a story-based thing. It's completely for combat.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll leave the game obviously, but I think it would be more fun if if you could transform into a wolf, you got like wolf storylines that could appear.
Exactly. I remember at first I even thought that we'd eventually become like a full wolf or something.
You do.
Yeah, you do. Yeah,
yeah, but all of the transformations you get like one part transformed, and then over the years and over the legacies, it eventually becomes a full transformation.
Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah.
You need to have like a legacy character to get it full.
And even then, when you become a full wolf, it doesn't change anything, does it? Like they don't get a new skill.
I'm having a look now. So the wolf head lets you bite.
Yeah.
The wolf arm gives you a wolf claw, and if you get both arms, you get frenzy. And the wolf legs give you plus speed.
Yeah, I think that's a mistake to not have a plot significance for that.
Yeah. So I mean,
that was a very.
I think combat-wise, this difference is there. You can obviously have a varied set of characters with different skills, different uses. But obviously, there's a big mistake not adding any kind of story elements to it.
It's kind of funny because like, imagine if it was like he got a new sword or something, and that sword was like, he got a sword, and then because of or a new weapon, and because of that weapon, they got your character got new abilities. That's one thing. But this is a wolf head.
Yeah.
You don't think anyone would have noticed that? No one's noticed. Like,
yeah. Why did NPCs never go? Oh fuck! What the fuck is that? It's a wolf! Run! They treat you like a normal human being, even if you're made out of. They treat you completely normal, even if you're made out of fire. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're probably furries. That's it. That's my explanation.
Yeah, because there's a lot of transformations, like a fire transformation, a rock transformation. But I do agree that it never seems to affect the story, even if you look completely different, even if you're completely non-human. You'll always be treated like a human.
Exactly, man. Maybe I should jump into the second review and then come back to the first. Because the second review basically said the same thing. It says this is a quote. This game is praised by others for its randomly generated storytelling, but the problem is you can't tell a good story with procedurally generated sentences that are randomly strung together.
Right,
what do you think about that?
Okay, so that, I mean, first off, I think he's kind of he's misinterpreting the point. With procedurally generated sentences that are randomly strung together, but they're not randomly strung. So the way the stories work, the storyboards work, is each of them is like written on its own as a full story within that content, within that little board. So we're not random sentences, we're not random events either. So rather how it works is just each story can have a random chance to appear, depending on like hooks and stuff, and your characters are just put in it. I do agree that overall you can't make a proper overarching story that gets you really invested, but I think each story on their own is quite well written, and they're quite fun to read if you haven't read them already.
Yeah, like you don't. I honestly kind of disagree at this point. Like I do think you lose like some detail by using procedurally generated story, like a lot of detail.
Yeah, I mean,
because you lose like the intention, of like creative intention, the expression in there. Yeah, but the thing is that you can't tell a good story and have it like random.
Yeah.
Maybe good is not the right word, but I do think you can tell a fun story. I think our adventures have been very wacky, and
remember,
even if it was
Mo, do you remember AI Dungeon?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's really what I was going to point out. Like even if it's like completely 100% random, or like random words, random sentences slapped together, it can still be a very fun time, which is what AI Dungeon is.
So I mean, I get his point. I think it's a fair point to make. I just don't think he's wording it properly, and I think he might. Some people might read this and become a bit misinformed on the game.
Let's go back to the first though. The first also said the game lacked content. He said basically that there was after enough time, you basically get through everything, and that happens pretty quickly.
So I think there's layers to the content that I think you're missing out here. The weapons and the armor, you can get through them. You can get through them in like the first chapter.
Yep.
But there isn't just weapons and armor. There's elemental weapons that you have to unlock by getting legacy heroes with those weapons. There's artifacts you can unlock.
I do think the game lacks content. I do think you should have more content, and I do think, and they're currently working on that.
Yeah, maybe to be updated quite regularly.
But that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad game. Just because like after 2-3 times you kind of loses its.
I mean, I think there's enough. I think there's enough content right now to keep you satisfied for a good while. I mean, that being said, I've got 42 hours and I'm still seeing new stuff every now and then. It's not too common now, obviously, but it's still happening every now and then.
The last point this review made, once you've played enough, the mechanics get stale.
What do you think about that?
Oh, but let me tie it in with like the third review. It says, combat loops are essentially the same for every battle in every class. What do you think they mean? Because that's a little vague. He says classes do not change hardly at all from playthrough to playthrough. There are only a small handful of potential abilities to choose from on level up.
So I think that's completely wrong. I don't think that's accurate at all. So first off, we have different transformations that appear, and there's quite a lot of transformations. I don't know how many exactly, but it's quite a lot, and they definitely impact how you play. And the transformations aren't limited to classes. So you can get a warrior, for example, who gets the wolf transformation. So they turn into more of a speedy kind of berserker warrior rather than a tank, for example. And then obviously, I mean, I think in general you do have a lot of the options where to branch them out. You can, for example, make your warrior a tank, make them. Yeah.
There's different builds and stuff you can run. Like I remember, like when we did, sometimes we'd have like a 1 damage DPS mage, and then we'd have like a battle mage.
Yeah. So like speaking of that, I actually wanted to like buff up my legacy a little bit. So what I wanted to do was do a run with three of the same classes on 3 different runs, just to get them in the legacy. And what I ended up doing was I had 3 mages in one game. One of them was a battle mage. I gave him a sword. I buffed him up with like tanky items and stuff like that. And
it worked, right? It was
it worked. It worked.
And by the way, the combat loop thing is like, so what? Like just because every combat starts the same, and even then that's not completely true, because sometimes you get like bonuses, effects that happen. Or for example, like everybody starts invisible this time, and stuff like that. Even if that weren't the case, it's like just because it's the match starts the same, and you decide to employ the same strategies, doesn't mean that the combat.
Yeah, I think that's a flaw with his style of gameplay rather than the game
itself. Exactly. If you want, you could make the combat. The combat is whatever you make of it.
Yeah. Like you don't even have to like have the same classes. You can pick to have 3 warriors at the start, or 2 warriors and 1 hunter. Or you can do what you want. I mean, I think the weapon variety is actually okay, all things considered. Like, for example, you have heavy hammers, which like they have knockback, and then you have spears, which have extra range on their attacks and stuff like that. So you do have gameplay options. You know what I mean? I mean, you're not even limited. You don't even have like weapon limitations as a class. Like, you can take a mage who normally starts with either a wand or a staff, and then give him a bow.
Yeah, completely, 100%. So yeah, okay. So one last thing, the last thing we're talking about. The last thing, there's one last review, and this one, it was complaining about the timer. Maybe you want to explain what the timer is?
Okay, so in Wildermyth there is this timer. Days go by pretty much, years go by, and at the end of every chapter, a certain amount of years skip. Like, just obviously.
And I think you also have deadlines for completing.
Yeah, some quests have deadlines. But ultimately, you know, as time goes by, days go by. That's pretty much what the timer is.
So, how do you feel about the time, though? How do you feel about?
I think in general, the timer is good. I think it's a good mechanic, and I think the game needs it to be the game it is. But it's a little fast. I wish there was ways to slow down.
And I completely agree. Like, I think the timer is, like you said, it's a good mechanic.
I mean, I feel like I grow attached to my heroes, and then like all of a sudden they're old men. You know what I mean?
It's what makes this game special too. It's not every game, not every turn-based game has a timer. But the person who wrote this review does not think that way. This person does not like it, right?
Yeah.
I have a quote from him. It says, or from them. Some people like this juggling act between a doom clock and a completionism. How do you feel about that? So in his eyes, he thinks the doom clock prevents him from exploring and from completing the game.
It doesn't.
It doesn't.
I mean, it's never.
Yeah, it doesn't.
I mean, unless you're in like a timed quest, which are quite uncommon, I've found, you definitely have time to explore.
There's like a very finite number of things you can do in each.
Yeah.
Very finite.
There's every chapter has like a limited number of things you can do before you pretty much have to finish the chapter.
Yeah, and for most part, it lines up well with the doom clock.
Yeah, nearly.
It's a little tight. It's a little tight. Not gonna lie.
Nearly every time I do a chapter, I manage to do 100% of the things in it. I manage to clear every tile, you know, explore everything, do every event. But you know what, his point is fair, I think, in some ways.
It's essentially the same point as you, that the timer should be a little different. But he thinks there shouldn't be a timer at all.
I think you should have.
I wish I'd agree.
I think it'd be nice to have like, you know, you get like settings before you join the game. There should be more settings there, and one of them should be like how fast the timer goes.
Or even disabling the timer and see. I don't know.
I don't know how that would affect the game, honestly. Maybe make it so that time only skips at the end of chapters.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's interesting.
So the timer doesn't exist in the campaign. Obviously, that would be optional. I mean, there should be an option for it, at least.
All in all, though, way too many people are focused on the game's storytelling rather than the actual gameplay. Based off these reviews.
Yeah, I mean, I get that the storytelling is like, you know, a big part of it, since that's pretty much what they advertise into it.
Yeah, that's because they just see D&D and they're like automatically story. D&D is like story is like the main focal point of D&D.
I think the combat is a bit more important than people are letting on. Because I enjoy the combat. I don't know about you, but I really like the combat. I think it's quite.
I really do too. Yeah.
I think, you know, the way some things synergize with each other is quite smart. The way the turn-based stuff works as well is better than most turn-based games, I think.
Yeah, because what's cool about it, you don't have to really wait for your teammates to do something.
Yeah.
You can like do it before them, so you can like race each other.
So instead of it being like player then enemy then player then enemy, it's the entire team has a turn, and the entire enemy team has a turn. And
even within that team, it's like it's not necessarily you go first. I can go first if I want to.
Yeah, you can just switch between.
Whoever acts first.
Yeah, and if you have a party on your own, it's just you playing. You can just switch between whatever character you want and make them do whatever you want.
Exactly. So
that allows you to, you know, really set up synergies. It lets you set up strategies better, I think.
So yeah, that's pretty much what we gotta say about this game. It's a good game overall.
Yeah, I think the reviews we've looked at so far are fair.
They
have
fair,
they have valid criticisms. They're not bad. So is that us wrapping up there?
Yeah. I don't know how to end these videos, man.
So now we're done with these Steam reviews. What do you think about this one?
This review was the Dark Souls reviews.
I agree.
No. We can do better than that.
Okay.
Let me think of something quippy.
So now we're done with these reviews, and what do you think about this one?
I think it's kind of ironic because a lot of people here were criticizing the game for being procedurally generated, the downsides of it. But in reality, our review was kind of procedurally generated.
Wow, that's deep.
No, just
No, that's
no, just get out of here, bro. Just don't.
that's a Dark Souls.
End it here, end it
That's
here.
a Dark Souls philosophy right there, Mo.
Oh my god, bro. We don't know how to end this shit.